Now that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has officially released, and it's been about a month since that release, let's talk about the next big Dragon Ball game that we could potentially see in the future, and that might be Xenoverse 3. Ah yes, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3, a video game that shares the legend and lore of the Tooth Fairy and iconic figures like Santa Claus. You know what they all share? Now, for any kids watching, I'm just joking. Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus are 100% real. I just talked to them the other day, okay? But let's talk about Xenoverse 3. It's been a while, all right? It's been about, I think, like 7 or 8 months since I talked about this. I think the last time I talked about it was probably in February. You guys know, we got to constantly talk about Xenoverse 3, okay? It's like renewing the license of it on my channel, right? I'm the new Bandai Namco, so I got to constantly renew this, right? So let's talk about it because nobody obviously is talking about this game because this shit don't exist, right? It never existed, and it's never even been acknowledged by Bandai Namco themselves, right? But Sparking Zero just recently released about a month ago. It's been about a month. We've played the game, we've digested it. For the most part, a lot of us are enjoying it. There are definitely issues with the game. You know, there's going to be a patch coming pretty soon, or probably around next month in December. So Xenoverse 3 actually did get a little website update. Again, keep in mind, this doesn't mean jack shit, okay? It never did. It's just something that I like to bring up because it's interesting. This is the xenoverse3.com domain, which redirects to Bandai Namco, I think Europe's page or whatever, which is usually how a lot of these Dragon Ball websites, you know, kind of handle it. I think Sparking Zero is like the only one that has like an actual full official site. It actually has multiple sites. Xenoverse 2 does have a site, which is for Japan, but this is different, okay? This actually just got an update yesterday. I mean, at the time I'm recording this video, today is the 9th of November. It got an update yesterday on the 8th, which is actually pretty cool. Now, keep in mind, it has been kind of extended for the expiration of it being in 2025. This happens all the time. They usually update it every couple of, maybe it's like every couple of days. Sometimes they do it every week, maybe every month, okay? They'll do an update, but nothing will usually change on expiration until it gets close to that expiration. So we still got a little over a year until that happens. Now, keep in mind, this was created before Xenoverse 1 even released, if you can believe that, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they had Xenoverse 3 planned, but it's very likely that they wanted to keep this domain open so that they could register it and use it eventually if they did decide to make a Xenoverse 3, okay? That's all this is, you know, for, right? It's more of like a hypothetical, like, what if we made a Xenoverse 3 in the future? At least we have this domain open so that we can, you know, make the website and have everybody, you know, go to that site for information, updates, and all that bullshit, right? Now let's bring up the iconic, legendary tweet from about 2 years ago. If you can believe it, it's been 2 years since this went up. Now, shout outs to Super Chronicles. Whether you want to use him as a reliable source or not, this was actually something that was from Psycho Devin, which his you can't even click on. I guess he changed it or something. I don't know. Maybe, is he a fraud? I don't know. I'm joking. I don't know. Okay. I've never really had too many connections with Psycho Devin, but they said this 2 years ago, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 is in development, expected to release around 2024. Now, guys, it's almost 2025, so obviously that shit didn't happen. That was not true at all. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you what was true or not, okay? Even though I just said it's not true. I'm just making jokes, right? I have no idea what this tweet, what the fuck this was, right? Like, it was kind of crazy because when this first went up, at the time, again, this was posted July 10th, 2022. Sparking Zero wasn't even a thing. Nobody knew that was even coming. I don't know, maybe some leakers might have known, but as far as I know, I've talked to DBSI, I've talked to a lot of leakers, and they told me that they never expected or heard anything about Sparking Zero. They did a really good job about keeping Sparking Zero all hush-hush, right? So we didn't get the reveal or announcement for Sparking Zero until that teaser at Battle Hour of 2023. This was about a year later, okay, a little less than a year later that happened. Now, this went up, and it was very believable. A lot of people were like, hey, you know, let's jump on board with this, because Xenoverse 3, it was expected to be the next big Dragon Ball game. Literally no one really expected, maybe one or a few people were always hoping for a new Tenkaichi game, okay? Which it wasn't that crazy to believe that they would, you know, make a new one. But it was like 17 years, right? And if that doesn't tell you that they will return to a series from almost decades ago, right? Then I don't know what will when it comes to Xenoverse 3, because everybody thinks that Xenoverse 3 will never happen. And I totally understand it, because Xenoverse 2 is still getting updates and everything. But when it came down to this, the only game that we knew that was coming was Dragon Ball The Breakers, which is going to be coming later that year in October, which I don't know if they actually announced an official date or not. I feel like it was kind of more of like a shadow drop. They were like, oh, it's coming, 2022, right? But yeah, that ended up happening, and that kind of, you know, played more into Xenoverse 3 being a thing, just because Breakers was set in the same universe, created by the same developers. It was like a spin-off of Xenoverse 2 that, you know, did this Dead by Daylight shit, which you guys know Dragon Ball games, they're experimenting all the time with spin-offs, you know, in between the years that they're going to release the big major game, which is something like Xenoverse, Fighters, Sparking Zero, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Those are the big heavy hitters that they're trying to make the most amount of money on, but they'll have those spin-offs in between for those, you know, areas of people that the audience of people that want to try out something different, or they have an interest in that specific genre, right? Because most of the big major Dragon Ball games are usually fighting games, okay? They're not going to be stuff like, for example, Project Multi that's coming out next year, which is a MOBA, which is, I never expected them to even do that shit, right? So yeah, at the time, I believed it. A lot of people believed it, and people were making videos about it. They were, you know, there was discussions about Xenoverse 3. Everybody thought it was going to be the next big thing, but unfortunately, it never ended up happening as far as we know. Now, I personally am not using this as, is it happening, is it not happening? I'm just going with my gut, and I still do think that Xenoverse 3 will happen. I've stated this all the time in my previous videos. I might be the only person, other than maybe people that follow my content, that actually believe that Xenoverse 3 will happen. Now, Xenoverse 2 is still getting updates. We're set on a release for, I'm hoping by the end of this year, for Future Saga Chapter 2, okay? We had Chapter 1 releasing earlier this year, actually around kind of like May, so I guess maybe you could consider it like a mid this year. So that was the first of 4. Okay, there are at least 2 more chapters to come after this. So that's at least, at minimum, 1 full year, all of 2025, to produce Chapter 3 and 4. It could go into 2026, just depending on if they are, you know, how much content's going to be in it, if they're meeting the deadlines. They usually do about 2 DLCs each year, and even Chapter 2, I can't confirm if it's coming, you know, by the end of this year. I'm expecting it to, just because they've done the announcement already since, I think, last month, like earlier last month, or like around September or whatever. I don't even remember exactly when they put up that first trailer, but it should be coming. We haven't really gotten too many updates on it other than the Daima shit. But yeah, all of 2025 is set for content in Xenoverse 2. So I do not think that Xenoverse 3 is coming anytime soon at all, but there are just so many things that Xenoverse 2 is not doing that Xenoverse 3 should be doing. Do you know what I mean? And we've talked about this all the time. You know, the foundation of the game is still exactly the same. All they're doing is they're just adding more of the same shit that they've already had since the game launch, okay? More characters, more customization, you know, costumes and skills and stuff, but they're not expanding like the actual custom character thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, the avatar is the biggest, most important aspect of this game and what sets it apart from the other Dragon Ball games. That's why people are still playing this, even though Sparking Zero is out. Everybody's like, oh, the game's dead, the game's dying. But there's been a consistently, like, the same amount of players in Xenoverse 2 even since a Sparking Zero release. It ranges around 1,000 to like 2,000 players, depending on the day or the weekend or whatever. It's been like that for years. The only time that it will change is it'll spike up when a new DLC drops, and that's it. And then obviously it'll go back down, okay? So the situation with that is that Xenoverse 2 is still very active enough to where they're going to keep supporting it. Now, again, when it comes to Xenoverse 3, there are just so many things that Xenoverse 2 is kind of doing that they could just expand upon and make even better in a Xenoverse 3. Like I said, I've made so many videos about what they could do to make it better. Add a new race or new races, okay? We've had the same amount of races, all right? More customization, you know, aspects for, like, I don't know, body types or cack thickness for the females. Shout outs to that, right? You know, jiggle physics. No, I'm okay. We're getting crazy, right? It's NNN right now, so we can't be talking about that. But you know, new hairstyles, everything that kind of Revamp has done in the past, as you guys know, They just recently dropped their huge 5.0 update, and that pretty much made Xenoverse 3. And there's just a lot of content, you know, that is in the manga that they haven't even adapted in the anime yet. Now, again, Daima is coming, and that is the next big anime. That's the new anime that's coming out. But again, there's no reason for them to jump into Xenoverse 3 right now when Sparking Zero is kind of their main focus. That's like the favorite child right now for Bandai Namco and just Dragon Ball games in general. It's the most played, it's the most active, it's the newest, freshest, hottest thing, so they're going to keep supporting that. But they haven't completely forgot about Xenoverse 2. Like I said, we're getting DLC coming, but they definitely seem to not be promoting it or going as hard on it compared to previous years when Sparking Zero wasn't even a thing, right? So let's go over the history of Dragon Ball games and how they kind of do this, and when do I think that potentially we'll see Xenoverse 3. Again, I don't think we're seeing it anytime soon. I still think it might happen around the time that maybe Dragon Ball Super comes back with, you know, a new anime series, like a full weekly series. Again, Daima is different. We have no idea how long it's going to last. I feel like Daima might be pretty short. Maybe it lasts less than a year. You know, maybe it's going to be like 20-something episodes, or it could be, you know, more than that. Hopefully it is. I do hope that it's a pretty long series, but we'll definitely see, okay? So Xenoverse 1 came out in 2015, if you can believe that. That shit's crazy, right? Xenoverse 2 came out 1 year later, which is actually insane because it's like, what the fuck happened? How did we go for 1 year later to Xenoverse 2 and then Xenoverse 3 just died? It just didn't exist? No, because they kept supporting it, right? Now, we had two games that came out in 2016. Sometimes, very rarely, we'll get multiple games. They did Dragon Ball Fusions. Now, I don't know what was going on in 2016, but I think it was just mainly because Dragon Ball Super was kind of ongoing and it was like really hot and they were trying to sell as much shit as possible. So usually when a new anime or a new movie comes out, they'll have like a game that really goes hard on it. So they did two games, Dragon Ball Fusions and Xenoverse 2. Then in 2017, we had Xenoverse 2 for Switch. Yes, those count as, you know, letting Bandai renew this IP for Dragon Ball and keep, you know, being able to make games related to Dragon Ball, right? Dragon Ball, and I would say maybe Naruto, and probably like, what is it, like Gundam or whatever. Those are like the big games those are Bandai's money makers, okay? Dragon Ball definitely, like, they do not want to lose this shit. Because if they lose this shit, they're losing tons of money. And you guys heard about all the Bandai cuts and everything. There were a lot of cuts for like certain games. I think there were employees and things, which is kind of sad, but you know, it is what it is. This is how like gaming market is and all that shit these days, right? But moving on, we had Fighters, which is the next big Dragon Ball game, about 2 years after the release of Xenoverse 2. So, I mean, unfortunately, Dragon Ball Fighters is just kind of like, I would go as far as to say it's kind of dead right now, just because there hasn't been any content and no support. Maybe they'll do some like new patches and stuff, but I don't know. We'll see. Moving on here, we had 2019, which was Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission. Great game. They fucked the release up on that, and they just fumbled this, dude. They just did so bad on it. Like, it got barely any content, and then the online was horrible with it having issues, I think, on PC. Oh, God. Every Dragon Ball game has online issues. Like, I will sit here and stand by that until the day I die, until I see them actually do stuff that works. Because even Sparking Zero, the game that we were dead set hoping that it was going to be a decent online experience, it ended up being fucking garbage. At least as for right now. We'll see if they keep updating it, okay? Then moving on to 2020, we had the next big game, which is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. You know, stuff like Heroes World Mission and Fusions. Those are like the spin-off titles, right? So Kakarot was the big RPG or action RPG that they did, and then 1 year later they did it on Switch. Bandai was probably like, God bless the Switch for letting us have a game to renew the license each year, because they did this all the damn time. I think in 2019 they also did Dragon Ball Fighters, which was a Switch release, but I mean, whether or not you want to count that, it's up to you, but Bandai definitely does, okay? And then, of course, in 2022, we had Dragon Ball The Breakers, everybody's favorite game. Again, this was around the same time that this shit kind of went up, and everybody was like, hey, this is all kind of coming together. Dragon Ball The Breakers is like the bridge between Xenoverse 2 and Xenoverse 3, because there's so many things in The Breakers that Xenoverse 2, you know, doesn't even have that Breakers did get, right? Which is crazy. Super Saiyan 4 for CAC. Like, where is it? And then Dragon Ball Super card game Fusion World, okay, the digital version, that came out in 2023, and that absolutely counted as a release for it. It used a weird thing where it was like in a different client, but I mean, it still counts. And then, of course, this year we got our release of Sparking Zero, okay, which is huge. Biggest game, probably the biggest game that Dragon Ball will ever get, unless Xenoverse 3 comes out and can do better, but I don't know. We'll see if that ever happens. And then 2025, which my head might be covering it, is Dragon Ball Project Multi, okay? Again, big surprise. Nobody expected them to do a Dragon Ball MOBA game and announce it during the hype of Sparking Zero. That blows my mind. And it is confirmed to be coming out next year, and they even had like some updates on it saying like, oh yeah, we're going to be, doing these changes to the game and making it better for whatever community feedback that it got. Now, this was a game that has been beloved by a lot of people. A lot of people are enjoying when it had a little beta test. I liked it. It was pretty fun. I'm not super into MOBAs, but I mean, the graphics are really nice. It's a beautiful game, and for the most part, it's different. It can be fun for people that like this type of genre, right? So 2025 already has its Dragon Ball game. So again, Sparking Zero we got this year. Next year's spin-off game. That's usually how it goes. They usually do big major game release, spin-off game, and then they'll have like re-releases. Like we'll probably be getting Sparking Zero on Switch, probably the Switch 2 if that's coming out next year. We'll probably get the Switch version of Sparking Zero, which actually would be fire, right? I don't think they're going to put it on OG Switch. I think they're going to wait for the next Switch just because Sparking Zero is like super graphically intensive. But even then, they're going to have to like, dumb it down or, put the graphics down a lot and make it optimized for that. So that's the situation with that. That's the history. So again, I do not think that we're seeing Xenoverse 3 until we see probably the anime return for Dragon Ball Super. I think that's when there's going to be so much content that they're just like, hey, straight up, we need to make a Xenoverse 3. And who knows, they could be making Xenoverse 3 as we speak. I still believe that is a possibility just because they're just slowly releasing content for this game. And even then, even though it's really fun content, Xenoverse 2 DLC, it's not like as crazy as like, for example, Fighters or even, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot or Sparking Zero, okay? A lot more, goes into those games. These games, for at least Xenoverse 2, I definitely think that if they really wanted to, they could pump out content pretty quickly with it. I think the only thing that really makes it, take a long time are probably like the cutscenes that they do, like CGI cutscenes, because that's definitely a lot of work. But I'm pretty sure they have another team because, Dimps, they're working on like 5,000 different games. They're doing Dragon Ball Legends, Breakers, and this game. So it's like, that's a lot of content. So they definitely have to have a lot of different teams working on it. So there could be a team on the side that is slowly, since, Xenoverse 2 launch, has been kind of getting ideas, working on Xenoverse 3. And even then, Xenoverse 3, all it would really need to do is just kind of build off of the foundation of Xenoverse 2 and expand it and make it, better. I don't know if they would need to even really change too many gameplay mechanics. I would hope so, but I don't know. We'll see if that actually happens. But y'all let me know your thoughts and opinions about it. Do you think we will get a Xenoverse 3 in the future? I personally, again, I've been on board with it since I've been talking about Xenoverse 3 and doing Xenoverse 3 speculation videos, and until Bandai or Dimps comes out and they say the Xenoverse series is done, we ain't coming back to it, it's done, right? Again, Sparking Zero, that alone should tell you that they are willing to come back with a banger sequel several years later. Like maybe we'll see Xenoverse 3 in 2029 or some shit, like 10 years after the release of over 10 years after the release of Xenoverse 2, right? Which is crazy because the anniversary for the 8th year anniversary already happened for Xenoverse 2, if you can believe that. So in 2 years, it's going to be 10 years old. What the fuck? So thanks again for watching. Drop a like, subscribe here on the channel, ring my notification bell, and also let me know down in the comments, what would you like to see in Xenoverse 3? What expansions? What customization? Comment below. I love reading your replies. Peace out. Have a great day.
This is Broly, and you are watching SLOplays. Make sure to subscribe, or else I'll destroy your entire planet.